And it's so funny, isn't it? I mean, these amazing things, when you look at Saturn through a telescope, you see this beautiful ring around Saturn. You look at all the pictures of the saints. You know, my wife's got a lot of icons from Russia, and all of them have a circle around their head. You know, it's the icon. But we're dealing with energies. We're dealing with mysteries. We're dealing with understanding the heavens within and the heavens without. And then from there we can understand how it affects our behavior out here. I mean, think about this. As above, so below. As within, so without. That's the whole key to understanding astrology. And the more you get conversant with this, the myths, all these myths, study mythology, it'll enrich your life. Because your subconscious thinks better in pictures than words. And so all these myth stories, you know, most children when they were raised years ago were told fairy tales at night. And they had a very big impact on their development of their sense of right and wrong. Today we don't do that. We put them in front of a TV and walk away, leave them for hours to watch all that stuff on TV. What do you think it's done to the children? You know, instead of having the positive fairy tales, which were sometimes very scary, you know. I mean, Little Red Riding Hood, I mean, you know, and that was a scary story, you know. But, you know, the whole point was there was morals and there was messages in all these stories about good and evil and kind of inculcating in their children. All right. So when we look at the charts, we're looking at these ancient archetypes. And we have to understand that's what they are. They're archetypes. And once you begin to interpret them, you start working with people, you start to manage to bring those archetypes down into a form that people can translate and understand. And that's what your job is as an astrologer. My gift to you, you know, I've got a website, a blog site called My Gift for You. Letter 4, number 4, and a U, My Gift for You. And Janella was saying, Ron, you should be doing a blog site regularly. I did it for a while back, many months ago, and then I kind of dropped it. And a lot of people responded to it, the different things I posted on it. But the point, where was I going with all that? I was going somewhere. I'm not sure where it was. But the point being that we have a gift that I'm sharing with you a gift. It's an extraordinary gift that I've accumulated a lot of knowledge over many, many decades. And if you can run with this and pick it up and walk out of here, and not this is the next class is the final class, say, well, I learned astrology and I'm good. Don't do that. Go out here and do and practice it. And what gets me is I see it already happening. I see you guys doing it because you call me with this, Ron, this is doing that, my chart, and I see this in this person's chart. And, you know, my mother had a car accident. What can we see? Can we look at that and see it? To me, that means you're thinking and you're starting to get into the scope of this and understanding the complexities of it. But nobody will teach you what I taught you today. Nobody else can teach you. And I don't care how much you study. Don't lose the fundamental truths, the basics, because that's where it's all at. Don't go getting on these journeys of, I'm telling you, you waste so much time. I've done it. I've done it for you so you don't have to do it. You know, there's different systems out there. Ebertin, it's a German system. And it uses midpoints and it uses all this. And you can spend hours, and I did it in my cell in prison. I used to do it. And you can construct this magnificent possibility chart with everything in it you can imagine. Or you can use solstice points. Or you can use pars of fortune, pars of death, pars of marriage, these are Arabic parts. Everybody puts a pars of fortune. You all have a pars of fortune in your chart. Did you know that? Every one of you. So all of you look at your chart, you see in there is a circle with a cross in it. The earth is this. Not much difference, is it? Except this is this way, part of fortune. So people put them in there, they're in there. People put some emphasis on it. And I say, well, that's good. You believe pars of fortune is influential and important. Then why don't you put the pars of death? Why don't you put the pars of marriage? You know, there's all different Arabic parts. So many so that when you're finished with your chart, you're going to be confused. Because you're going to have all these different things in there. Stay with the simplicity. Stay with the basics. Don't get caught up in all this complexity. I've seen many teachers, and I haven't seen a lot that are really helping the students at all. They're putting them in a place where they're so confused and they can find anything they want in a chart. If they're real psychic, maybe they can do something with all that stuff. Maybe there's a way. Maybe some people are good with all that. I haven't seen too many that are. But you have the basics. You have the roots. And in the basic root, don't ever forget the roots. Do you remember how many times have I done this for you? Huh? The circle, the crescent, and the cross. Okay? Those are the three roots of the planets. So when you're looking at Jupiter, you know that the compassion, the soul, dominates the cross. If you're looking at Saturn, this Jupiter, you know that the soul is the dominant factor. If you're looking at Saturn, you know the soul is suppressed by the what? The physical. You know, it's cold. The cross dominates the soul. If you're looking at Mars, you see the same thing. Mars is what? We use an arrow, but it's a cross over the spirit, as opposed to this cross over the soul, which is Saturn. And if you have this, that means the world dominates your conscious mind. The physical world, the sexual world, all the things of the senses are dominating your conscious mind. So a person like the chart I saw today, somebody gave me, where the Mars was rising in the east, very powerful in that chart, right on the eastern horizon, means that I am person, that person, predominantly is thinking, quite a lot about what? Sex. He's driven a lot by that. Now, is that always bad? You know, I remember working with a guy once who hired a lot of salesmen. And I didn't necessarily agree with his ethics. But he did say something I never forgot. He says, I'll always hire a salesman who's a woman chaser before I'll hire somebody that's not. I said, why would you do something like that? He says, because he's aggressive and he's out there and he's pushing. Okay? Is it ethical? Is it dealing with morality? No, he didn't care about that. He cared about what? Yeah, the dollars, the success, and getting out there. Because he knew those guys are going to be out there stomping the ground, not only chasing the ladies, but chasing the dollars, right? So there's a lot of sides to things when you're looking at charts, okay? It doesn't make it good or evil, I don't know. It's all about how it's used, that's all. So keep thinking the basics. Don't lose sight of that, okay? Now, I know I got off on a tangent, and there was a couple of people who wanted me to look at a couple aspects in their chart. So I'm going to drop this for a minute, and let's go look real quick at the chart. What do we want to look at? Somebody had a question. I think you did, Michelle.
Saturn square Saturn.
Oh, okay. His Saturn is squaring your Saturn.
What?
Whose Saturn is squaring whose Saturn?
Somebody.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to let you do this one.
Okay.
Okay. First thing, Saturn square. Square means what to everybody in the room?
Conflict.
Conflict. It's simple, isn't it? Conflict. There's conflict between what? Huh? Well, that's good. Yeah, it is absolutely that. It is. It's conflict generally that involves something to do with the past very often. The past can become issue in his life and yours. You're nodding because it is already? Or it could?
No, but that makes sense.
Okay.
No.
You understand the potential of that.
Yeah.
So it's like the two pasts don't reconcile with each other. Okay. You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
Remember, always when you think of Saturn,
Yeah.
when you think of Jupiter, what do you think about? Future. Jupiter's your vision. It's your faith in the future. It's optimism. Saturn is what? Pessimism. Two people that have Saturn afflicting each other, what do you think is going to cause that? Each person is going to be what? Resentful and depressed. You'll depress each other. Yeah. You'll find it yourself also finding yourself very often. Now we're just doing one aspect, obviously. I'd have to see the whole chart. There might be redeeming things outside of that, but one of the things that happens with Saturn is you often feel alone even though you're with a person. You can be with them, but you feel there's something not there. I'm not really at one with this. I don't feel, because Saturn divides. So we got two energies here that are saying, it's like you'll tend to feel that the person's selfish. They only care about talking about themselves. You see what I'm saying? Because they're self-preoccupied. That's what Saturn is, divided. And they tend not to see your side of things. Okay? That's how Saturn does. Saturn wants to be, it's selfish in a way. Saturn is selfish at its worst side. So,
But it
It can, because if you're both sitting there with that aspect, and he can feel the same way about you. She really doesn't listen and care about my problems, and the other way around, you know. He's only interested in sharing his problems, but he never listens to my problems. You see what I'm getting at? And so that dynamic can go back and forth. And so it can be very disuniting. Okay. Any other aspects out here we're talking about? Yes, honey.
Pluto, their Pluto in the seventh house, squaring my Sun and Venus, and then Mars.
Whoa.
And
It's
T-cross.
setting a T-cross up in your chart. Here's Pluto.
It's Pluto.
Any other planets involved in that cross?
No, but there's a Saturn in the 12th, there's Saturn in that 12th house. That's the big karmic.
Yeah, usually his Saturn in your 12th can be a past karmic thing that you owe something to him. You know, I often think that when I see those aspects, you know, did I just forget to pay him money I owed him? You know, what's all this about? You know, I remember when my parents, my step-parents, they weren't my real parents, but they lent me about, oh, what was it? Remember, $20,000 or something dollars to pay our taxes. Remember back when we lived in Anaheim? My dad gave me a bunch of money. And because we were arrears of taxes, and I was really worried about the, you know, tax man, you don't want them on your back. So he lent me this money. And soon after, he died. And then, and keep me straight if I'm telling this story right. And then what happened? Then Jeanette, his wife, you know, who was my stepmother, she asked me for the money. And she was going in for surgery, for heart surgery, and she didn't survive it. But I knew that she was on death's door. You know, I knew that. You know, after my dad died, when, you know, he wasn't my real dad, but when he died, I knew that she didn't want to live anymore. They used to always argue about who's going first. You know, I don't want to be left. You know, if you go, I want to go first. You know? Anyway, enough of that. So anyway, but the point being, I never shared this with anybody before. But I remember, I knew that if I didn't pay that money, I probably would never have to. That's a very, how would you say, it's a kind of a, it's kind of a bad thought. You know, it's one of those guilty things you have that you say, you know, geez, I know if I don't pay this, it probably will never have to be paid. And as it turned out, I paid it because I didn't want the karma. Because she wanted that money back. And I knew that if I didn't want to have any more karmic debt with her, because I wasn't very happy with her as a stepmother. She was very abusive. I'm sorry if I said that. So I'm watching all these shows now with everybody's up there watching. What's the newest one, Angels? What's the new one, Angels? Something about angels. Have you seen that?
I don't watch TV.
Oh my God. Yeah, what's the one now that, you know, the one that, what's the one we usually watch? I watch, you don't. What's her name? Teresa. You've ever seen her? Yeah.
Oh, yes.
She's scary. She really is amazing. But there's a new one on, and just as maybe even more accurate. Oh, scary. I mean, really. She comes in and strangers is, oh, I see an accidental death. Oh, I see a needle in their arm. Oh, they overdosed. And everybody starts crying because it happened to this guy. I mean, that's how accurate she is. She's scary. She makes Teresa's great, but this woman is scary. So, anyway, so I didn't mean to offend. So what I'm thinking now is that when we have karmic debt, sometimes it's incurred in some ways we would never think about. Like in my mind, that would have been a karmic debt. I would still always be indebted to her if I hadn't paid that money back. And I didn't want to have that relationship again. I had enough of it in this life, you know? And she did the best she could, but it wasn't the best for me. So anyway, so karma. It's what we sow, we reap, right? And why do you think they call Saturn, Father Time, the Grim Reaper? He's got a scythe, right? Think about it. Why is he the Reaper? Okay, but did I tell you before? He's what? Santa Claus, isn't he? Why is he Santa Claus? I was talking about the roly-poly Santa Claus in the United States. In Europe, he was a thin, emaciated old man with a beard. He symbolized Saturn. We celebrate Christmas on the Saturnalia, which is supposedly the birth of Christ. That's when Saturn rules. December 23rd to the 25th, we have the birth of the sun as it begins to come back from the northern winter declinations of deep south. So what happens is that Father Time, Saturn, Santa Claus, basically was a symbol of Saturn. And what does he say to the children? If you're good, I'll bring you gifts. But what does he say if you're bad? I'll put rocks in your stockings. And guess what? In Europe, they put coal in the stockings, right? What does Saturn rule? Rocks, crystals, minerals. So he was symbolizing that. He put them in your socks, right? So if you were good, though, you got gifts. So now we're back to karma. Is all karma bad? No, because Santa Claus, or Saturn, by the way, spell Santa, S-A-N-T-A. And guess what? Move one letter, what do you get? S-A-T-A-N, Satan, right? Let's do it this way. Let's do it this way. S-A-T, whoops, I messed that up. Wait, go over here, get this one. N, Santa. You think that's a coincidence? No, the people that did these archetypes and did this, they hid all this from you, so you won't see it. I've never quite figured out yet. I know how Satan can be made into Santa. Very simple, with a simple moving a letter around. But I've never understood yet, if somebody ever can tell me what this is. Claus. Elena, you're a linguist. It must mean something, a clause. In language, I know it means something, a clause.
German. Klaus is the name. That's German. We have Saint Christopher and Santa. Now Klaus is also a German name.
Yeah. I wish I knew how it got tied in with Santa, because I'm sure there's something hidden in that. Maybe I have to move letters around to get it. Maybe there's something here I didn't get. Oh, maybe cause, C-A-U-S-E.
How can you make an English word out of a German name?
Well, how can you make Santa out of Satan?
Well, you have to make sure the same thing in German.
Well, let me say this.
Santa is from Latin.
I don't know. I remember somebody.
Saint.
Saint, yeah.
Santa is from Saint.
Yeah.
Saint Nicholas.
Yeah. Well, get what Nicholas is. You know where Nicholas came from?
Is it
Huh?
safe?
Nicholas.
Isn't it?
What's well? No, listen. What does Saturn rule? Father Time, right? Have you ever heard the word "in the nick of time"? Oh, Nick. How about this one? Well, there's so much here. The nick of time. Look at. Oh my God. I want to carry you further with that. If you go in the dictionary when you get home and look up Nick, N-I-C-K in the Bible. I mean in the dictionary. Guess what you'll find? It's an old name for the devil. Is that a coincidence?
What's it
Well,
called?
Nick.
in Scandinavian countries and in Holland, there's no Santa Claus. It's Santa Niklaus. Same thing in Klaus.
Niklaus. Klaus.
That's
It's part of
Niklaus.
Oh,
Yeah, Niklaus. Yeah.
that's where it came from. Thank you, Elena. That's the answer. Yeah. Thank you, guys. That's all this time I've been looking.
Remember where we found Aruba? That was close to the city in Aruba, the Dutch city, the Niklaus. Something.
Yeah, I remember that. It was, and we went there, and we found him on Christmas. Isn't that strange? Remember that? And we said it was the name of the area we found him was St. Nicholas or something?
Yeah, the Saint Niklaus.
Yeah.
Dutch
And
name.
Aruba. We thought that was kind of weird, that we find this beautiful cat there. Anyway, so there's so much here. You'll uncover more mysteries as you study, I mean, I've laid a pathway for you guys. If you keep pursuing it, keep looking, you're going to find so many things that are amazing. And these things are all there for you to assimilate and start thinking astrology about. Because once you start tying it all together, and you'll see how every year the sun descends into Capricorn. Every year on December 21st, it descends into Capricorn. On the 21st, and guess what it does on the 21st? It stays stationary in the bowels of the earth. Descended into hell, he stayed how many days? 3 days. Guess what the sun does every 21st to the 24th? It stays 3 days stationary in the bowels of the earth. And guess what it does then? Begins its journey back. It rises, it comes back again, right? That happens on the 24th at midnight. Did you know that? Which is when we celebrate Christmas. Not only that, if you draw a chart for the Christmas night at midnight of the 24th, when the sun begins to be born again, guess what rises in the east at that time, overseeing the birth of the sun? Virgo. He's born of a virgin. Every year, draw a chart on 24th, midnight, any time, and you'll see Virgo rising in the east, the sun begin to come back from its southern declination and rising again after 3 days in hell. Capricorn, hell. Why would it be hell? Because Satan rules it. You see all this? How much do you need to see that? It amazes me how all this has been kept from the people. It really has. The church doesn't want you to know this. Why do you think they suppress astrology? Because you start to understand all these profound mysteries. You start to see things that they don't want you because they'll lose control. Once you realize you're the temple and their temple's not on 4th of Main, you're not going to necessarily have to be there because you're going to be walking the walking temple. That doesn't mean you don't fellowship with other people of like mind and like spirit. I think it's a healthy thing. Where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, what? There I am also. Huh? Wow. Huh? It's enough tonight? Wear you out? But you see the profundity of what you're studying. It's not all just about the charts. It's not all about, it's about understanding the deeper mysteries of life. The ancients that taught us these things, that they've suppressed, they've hidden from you. The mysteries from the creation. So, anyway, my gosh.
They teach you what they want you to know.
Exactly. And I don't believe it's necessarily evil or bad in some respects, because if somebody really lives the Christian message of love and love thy neighbor, and they're picking that stuff up, I think that's healthy and good if a person lives it. And I don't believe in trying to convert anybody to my beliefs. I really don't. I've seen the damage that can do. If somebody is a true believer in what they believe, I don't care what they believe, as long as they're living it and living that life of goodness based on what they learned, then why would I want to convert them over to all this stuff? It might really throw them off. So I told you how my sister, when she was young, she's very rebellious and very bad girl. And my parents sent her off to a Catholic school in Kansas City. It was all girls school. She was in there. It was like a prison, but she was there. She learned. And I was in the Navy. I went to see her. I hadn't seen her in a long time. And I was in the Navy. I went to Kansas, and they let her come out that day and go visit with me all day. And I never forgot what a little lady she was, and how beautiful she was, and how she changed from that wild, crazy little gal that had no values and no systems of belief. And I bought her a cross and earring crosses. And then I found out later my dad and mom, when she went back home, had a fit because I'd bought her a cross because they hated Catholics. They sent her to Catholic school. They took her faith from her when she got home. They literally destroyed it. Went back to the same stuff she was in before, of constant being accused. Finding fault, that's what my parents were about. Finding fault, never said a good word about us. Usually found fault with us always. And what happens? Your self-image is destroyed. And eventually you just think you're worthless. And maybe that's why I spend so much time understanding and teaching praise and giving thanks. Don't accuse, don't find fault. It's not easy. It's not easy. When someone accuses us, we want to do it right back. That's the first instinct. If someone says something bad about you, you're going to write back. You're going to find out something to say about them. In a marriage, you do it. I do it. We do it. We get angry. We get upset. My wife said to me one day, she says she got upset because my office was a mess. And it always is. And I threw back, well, go look in your own bedroom. Go look in the bedroom. So what do? I start accusing back. That's human nature, but it's not the way we're supposed to be. And so later you think through it and you say, why do I teach all this and I don't behave that way? because the accuser likes to accuse back. Remember the story of, one more time, and I'm going to let you go. The story of Michael the archangel fighting with the devil over the body of Moses. I've told you this, I think. And it said, Michael's Mercury, by the way, in your chart. And Michael says, it says, God said, Michael did not hurl forth a railing accusation against the devil. He simply said, let the Lord judge thee. Because it's an eternal paradox. If you accuse the accuser, what have you become? You've become the accuser too. You're no better than the person accusing you, are you? So it's hard to bite our tongue, isn't it? It's hard to let go of things. But I think one of the wisest things I ever heard anybody say on TV was Johnny Carson when he was still around. Johnny Carson, and I used to watch him. And he said something I never forgot. He said the few words that ever got me out of most of my trouble in my life. But of course, he was divorced a few times. But he said something I never forgot. He said 4 words that always got me out of more trouble than anything else I've ever learned in life. And he said, you may be right. Yeah, somebody, if he disagrees with you, instead of arguing with you, he said, you may be right. He doesn't necessarily believe you are and doesn't necessarily say you are, but he said, you may be right. And he says it disengages more arguments than anything else you can ever think to say. And it really does. It's a kind of a smart thing to do if you're in a position where somebody's arguing with you. You may be right. Walk away from it. Leave it alone. Anyway, guys, you've been great to sit here and listen to me jabber for all these hours. You got to be strong people. So I appreciate your love and your attention, your dedication to astrology. And my prayer is only one. You may be my last class that I've ever taught this, but I really pray one thing, and that is that somebody carries the banner further. Somebody carries it on. Someone picks up the torch and goes forward and becomes the great astrologer in this room. That's what I want for you guys. And, you know, you got a long road, but it's worth it because you'll spend your life doing it. Who could spend 9 years in prison and never get really bored? With this, how can you get bored? Every chart's a new chart. I've been in hospitals laid up, and the nurses all want their chart reading. You know, everybody wants it. Everybody's there for you. You know? It brought me my wife, actually my ex-wife. Was one of my students back when I was in Chicago just after I got out of prison. She walked into my class. So it can bring wonderful things to your life. It can bring meaning and fullness. It enriches your life and enrich others. But above all, don't forget, praise, give thanks, and what? Trust in what? Good, good. Get out of here. Thank you all. Okay. You're light tonight. You know that, don't you?
Really?
Yeah. You really, when you're in light, you know, you just radiate. So.
I'll tell you a secret.
Tell me a secret.
Later.
Oh, okay.
Kind of a secret.
Listen, that's a Scorpio. That's a Scorpio. You know she's Scorpio, right? I'll tell you a secret. Scorpio, right? Well, tell me in the group of the crowd. Oh, no, I'll tell you later. Secret of Scorpios.
All
Anyway.
right, I'll tell you. In front of the whole class.
Okay, good. Come on.
Since the last time you saw me, I've been kissed for the first time in over 5 years.
How beautiful. See there?
That's where the light's coming from.
No, don't do that. Don't be like that. No, but you know what? I see it. Remember that I told you about the student that came in that day? She was all lit up? I can see it. I see it.